GAA Podcast on RTE.ie, sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. No matter your goal, if you're putting it in, we'll help you get more out. Optimum Nutrition, the official performance nutrition partner of the Gaelic Players Association.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last two matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to our latest episode of the RTE GAA Podcast. Myself and Rory joined by Neil McManus after, I was going to say, a feast of hurling for people, but it felt to me, Neil, like it had been built up so much. We were all talking about these provincial finals are going to be the greatest of all time. It's going to be brilliant. It was a bit of a flat weekend, apart from the Joe Mac final, which was actually probably the best game of the weekend. Just felt like both the Leinster final and the Munster final didn't quite live up to the hype.
Yeah, Jacqui, I think the Leinster final was a non-event, really. We all thought with Dublin going to Salt Hill, getting that seriously impressive victory over Galway to reach the final, that Dublin were going to bring it, and this was going to be a rip-roaring affair. Unfortunately, Kilkenny, once again, too strong for everybody else in Leinster, too good, and Dublin really, did they play the occasion rather than the match itself? That's a possible. And then, if we were thinking logically, we should probably have known that it was going to be really hard for Limerick and Clare to live up to what they'd given us over the past 2 years. And look, we got a really intense game. It was physical, it was frantic. The level of hurling probably wasn't just where it was over the past couple of seasons, but Limerick are they're unstoppable, really. And yeah, game of the weekend, no doubt about it. Joe McDonagh final again. And actually, last year's final, only 12 months ago, we had a cracker of a game, and the same again this year. So the Joe McDonagh is delivering again.
Yeah, it was great. And we'll get into that in detail. But let's start on that one, Rory, the Munster final, because I don't know if it was the delay with the thunderstorm and everything that happened, but it just felt like everyone was so built up for it. And then it was flat. And then by the time they came out, Clare just really underperformed. They never got to the pitch of it. I thought Limerick were excellent and again have continuously gotten better, but it just seemed like there was something off with Clare yesterday as well. And I don't know what it was, but the delay definitely had some effect on all of us who were pumped for it and then had to wait another half an hour as well. It was a mad day.
It's a very interesting question. The delay. I'm working on athletics at the moment, and your day job, as let's call it, and there's been a lot of false starts over the course of the week, and the technology hasn't certainly lived up to its billing, and they've had lots of problems. And this was, I suppose, a false start in a hurling context. And you would wonder, when you're dealing with thoroughbred athletes and thoroughbred racehorses, for instance, when a race goes off and they get called back again, what kind of impact that can have. Now, John Kiley mentioned afterwards that he seemed to feel that because it affected both teams equally, that it didn't really play a part. But they do put so much time into everything being methodical. We're going to arrive, the bus is going to leave at this time, it's going to arrive at that time, this is our warm-up, this is our team meeting, this is when we have a bit of grub, etc. So for something like this to throw it, you would wonder. I don't necessarily think I think John Kiley is right in that it probably did affect both teams equally, but what it probably may have affected is the quality of the game for some reason. Mm-hmm. It just never fired. Like, if you were to rank the 3 Munster finals, Limerick, Clare, over the last 3 years, you'd probably pick this one number 3.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it just did give me the sense, watching it last night afterwards, I just got a feeling that Limerick, the goal just before halftime maybe was the wrong thing to happen in some ways. It put Limerick really on their guard going in at halftime. Now, the other thing was, I never really got a sense from Clare that they were going to win this game.
Yeah.
It just felt like they were always at arm's length. And yeah, I think it's a long way back for them now. Now that they've proven in the past that they can recover. We saw what happened last year, for instance, against Kilkenny in the first half of that semi-final. They came out the second half, they were excellent. This year, they obviously lost the first round in sickening circumstances to Limerick, and came out the following weekend, went down to Cork when people might have felt, so they've proven that they can recover, but they've quite a mountain to climb from here now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Neil, because they underperformed in a game where they were probably under more pressure than Limerick, even with Limerick with everything on the line for 6 in a row, first county to do that. Clare were under pressure and they didn't reach the heights.
Yeah, and we touched on it actually on Saturday evening about how unfair it probably was that Clare were under such pressure whenever, Limerick were the team trying to create history, and yet the burden of expectation that those Clare players would have undoubtedly felt was huge, because let's be honest, there's a couple of the guys in that team as well who are probably running out of years as well. Brian Lohan's there, I think he's there 5 seasons now. They still haven't got over the line in Munster. But I think actually whenever they review the game, the couple of goal chances that they missed, there weren't a huge number of goal chances created, but whenever they really spurned those two really good ones, that could have been the difference, and a goal might have done it for them, because as soon as they missed the second goal chance of Mark Rogers' chance, Limerick reeled off 3 points in response to that. And you need to take all the opportunities against Limerick, because they're just too clinical, and they really got into their flow. Their half-back line were so dominant, which has been missing for a lot of the season. And you're thinking about how good this Limerick team are, and then you had to remind yourself that Sean Finn, Peter Casey, Seamus Flanagan, Dara O'Donovan, none of those guys were playing, and they look to have got better, if that's possible.
It's the evolution of the team, Rory, that I think impresses people most, because you have somebody like Shane O'Brien, not even in a match panel until 2 weeks ago, suddenly unbelievable performance that day. First start yesterday, same situation. You got people like Conor Boyle and Adam English, I think it's just the way he's managed to assemble a group of players that do continuously get better, and it's not the same characters all the time.
Not the same characters all the time. Cian Lynch taking off. Did that really affect him? Not really. I mean, what is he? Is he a 2-time hurler of the year? Garrod Hagerty, potentially in that category again. I mean, what a performance and what a player. I mean, an all-time great. No, absolutely no question whatsoever already. And I think Shane O'Brien has probably cemented his place on the team. You'd be very, very harsh to supplant him on the back of the performance he gave yesterday, and he gives them something different. I mean, to consider that he's only 19, it's absolutely incredible. They're 4 weeks off now. I think it's the perfect run in. They're going to go down as what they're chasing now is really. They're going to become the greatest team of all time. They're going to go one better than Kilkenny. And it looks like, if you were kind of making all things being equal, the path to that final is going to be Cork in the semi-final, potentially, and Kilkenny in the final. Now, that's obviously on the basis that Clare managed to get over Wexford, which I wouldn't consider a gimme by any means, given where Clare's mental disposition might be now, and considering that Wexford could pull something out of the bag there. But look, I think it's set up perfectly for them. They again always play well on the biggest of days. They still always put they're just bankers, Jacqui. They're a banker to play well. If you're going to beat them, you're going to have the day of days. And as Neil mentioned, particularly any goal chances, you can't afford to hit posts. I think Shane did a really interesting piece last night. I was only thinking about it myself. I was delighted he did it, because it was like a reaffirmment from my own head. Nicky Quaid, I think, spooks forwards. He does, because you're almost saying to yourself, if I don't absolutely tear the leather off this litter, and if I don't make sure it's down bottom left or bottom right corner, he's going to save it, So he just puts.
But if Rodgers had have scored that, though, right, it would have been goal of all time contender, because the pass from Tony Kelly to find him, if he'd have got it right in the corner of the net, that goal would have been replayed to kids all over the place. It was nearly perfect.
Yeah, it was but to me, he's such an important player for Limerick, and he's been doing it all through the championship from day one. Even in Ennis, he was outstanding. He made some incredible saves. The one he made, I still think the one he made with Brian Hayes in Páirc Uí Chaoimh was just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable in the first half. When they were under the cosh, he's an unbelievable leader and like just such an important player for them. But like,
if you think though, Rory, all the way back to that All-Ireland semi-final against Cork and that save he made
on
against
Seamus
Seamus Harnedy,
yeah,
like he's been doing it consistently since then.
years.
And he's
Yeah.
probably been, I think somebody last night, it might have been Joe Canning, said he's the most underrated player outside of Limerick, you know, in terms of his influence on the game. He's probably Limerick's most important player right now, Neil.
Distribution, puck outs, everything. Sorry, Neil.
You're grand. No, he's something else, and I think he's there 15 years. You know, it's a serious amount of service. Not only how often he makes these unbelievable one-on-one saves, but it's his use of the ball, the intelligence with which he plays the game. You know, the rule now that, you know, if you take your helmet off, that you have to go off the field. That's after him being too cute. You know, that's how he's got a rule named after him essentially now. But he seems like a very calm, cool, collected character. Even whenever, you know, you meet him outside of the white lines, he's somebody that they trust so much, because you see every time that there's nothing on ahead of them, they're just flicking it back the field to Nicky, and he's going to make the right decision. And then in the big moments, he's always there. You never have a worry. You know, we've seen the goal in the Leinster final that, you know, Dublin conceded essentially a goalkeeping error, and that just doesn't happen to Limerick. No errors. Everything that should be done well is done well, and he is the type of player, I would say, gives his backline serious confidence just to know that he's there behind them. And he almost comes out at times and you know, plays as a sweeper as well. It's incredible that ball, you know, back third of the field belongs to him.
Yeah, I think his influence, and as you said, the half back line, watching them come into their own, it's just what they do from here. Because Rory's right. You're talking about legacy now. You know, they've won 14 finals, 6 Munsters, 5 All-Irelands, 3 National Leagues. They haven't lost a final in John Kiley's reign. And just the way that they're moving now, I mean, John Kiley continuously talking about the data, saying they're getting better and better. It's just hard to see them being stopped.
Jacqui, the scariest part of all this was Gerard Hegarty's post-match interview, where he said, you know, we don't care about the last 5 or 6 years or what's happened since 2018. We're trying to be the best team we can be this year. And you're just thinking, is there no hint of complacency or anything to wedge the door open for somebody else? And clearly not. The drive that he was even talking with after the game shows you that, you know, this team they're thinking in a different way. You know, I do believe they're in that changing room talking about, this is us against us. We're the best team ever. But if we want to be known as that, we haven't done the 5 in a row yet at All-Ireland level. We have to get something more out of ourselves, and that's what they're looking for. And it's so hard to see anybody beating them. And I know Cork have already done it this year. I mean, it looks like they're going to come out against Cork in a semi-final. But can Cork do it twice? I don't know.
The only thing is, you might feel Rory catching him in a semi-final as opposed to a final. I think as Cork fans, maybe that's just being optimistic. But I do think if Limerick are going to be caught, I doubt it's going to be in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I like it'll probably be Kilkenny in the final, you would imagine, given the route they have. And I thought Dara described it in commentary as a statement performance from Kilkenny, and I think he was spot on. It really was. I think it was the best Kilkenny team we've seen. It was real. Right, we have everybody fit, we have everybody well. So, like, they'll definitely put it up to Limerick. That's the way it transpires. But I think it's shaping up. It's a bit early. Obviously, there's a few hurdles for different teams to jump. It's shaping up as Cork, Limerick, Clare, and Kilkenny potentially, and All-Ireland hurling semi-final weekend. And wow, I mean, if it is Cork, Limerick, and as I said, there is a couple of hurdles for Cork to jump, it'll be 70,000 in Croke Park, Jacqui. It's just going to be, it'll be like that 2018 semi-final all over again. And yeah, Cork will probably be coming up more in hope than in expectation, really, given Limerick's track record. But it wouldn't be without hope completely either.
Yeah. some crack ahead, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
it'd be great.
I did think Declan Hannon's speech was interesting as well, Neil, the way he said 6 weeks, like they were very adamant that yes, they're back in Croke Park in 4 weeks' time, but they fully intend on being back in 6 weeks' time as well. That and the 53 members in the backroom team, I think, drew a lot of headlines out of yesterday, which was interesting.
Yeah, that they were. I think I seen somebody on Twitter saying about they remember a small period of time ago where you had a bus for the players, a bus for the backroom team, and now they're saying that it's a bus for the players, 2 buses for the backroom team. But it goes to show you that Limerick are operating on a different level than most counties in every facet, and that's what it is. They don't just have this golden crop of players. They have all the supporting infrastructure around them as well to make sure that they're looked after and given the best chance that they possibly can. Like there's no young lad with even a hint of a possibility of being in that Limerick panel who's off in America or who's doing something else or going playing soccer. Those lads know that this is the time to be involved, and to get into that panel alone is quite an achievement. Never mind seeing the inside of the white lines.
Yeah, it's an amazing time to be a Limerick supporter. I'd say not a bad time to be a Leinster hurling fan either, Rory, given the way that this Kilkenny team are motoring. We do talk a lot about Munster versus Leinster, and I think maybe just listening to Paddy Deegan after the game on Saturday, he seemed to feel that Kilkenny were being disrespected, and maybe that is by all of us who have continuously put air into the Munster Championship and said it has been better. But I think you're right in what you said, Dara, talking about that being a statement performance by Kilkenny. I thought it was as much that they were stepping forward saying, we are contenders, we have come a long way. And I think maybe if they feel that way, he might be right in what he's saying.
Well, it goes back to the team selection. I think their first 15 are as good. They're going to be as competitive against any team. But the issue for them really, I suppose, was you were missing the likes of Mikey Butler at different times. You were missing Mikey Carey at different times. Adrian Mullen, Owen Cody. They didn't always have their full deck on the field at the same time. And when we saw that on Saturday, we saw exactly what they can do when they do have everybody, fit, able, and ready to roll. And I think there was a little bit of venom in the performance in that. Sometimes we can say, I suppose that was based largely on a scratchy enough track record through the Leinster campaign, a draw with Galway, a draw with Carlow. But the one thing that, again, struck me was they didn't lose any game. They didn't lose a single match in that round robin. So as much and all that people might have said their form was patchy, they still went through the campaign in the round robin stages unbeaten. And they're going to go into an All-Ireland semi-final now, depending on what comes through on the other side. It's classic Kilkenny. I thought, they're used to the ball, the way they were spraying it around, their fitness, their hunger, their desire. It's all there again. It's spades. And it's just a case now whether or not they have closed that gap should they manage to make it back to an All-Ireland final. Because look, last year's final performance against Limerick, I don't know, was the gap maybe 10, 12 points in the end. That won't sit well with them. And I think they're on their own little mission.
That's the big question, Neil, as to how much they have closed that gap. Because definitely on Saturday's evidence, you would say it has been significant.
It's really hard to tell.
Well, yeah, in fairness, they got no opposition.
The challenge was poor.
Yeah, Dublin just they'll be the most disappointing team from this weekend, I think, because Clare knew they didn't really fully perform yesterday, and they'll understand the reasons behind that, but their effort level was really high. There's so little Dublin can take away from Saturday evening, that's positive. Now, they are a little bit inconsistent, is the truth. So you wouldn't know what they could produce, next day out. But I just think that Kilkenny are a little bit short of Limerick still, and I don't know if they are settled enough either. Their team changes. It changed again for the Leinster final. It could change again next day out. Although their forward line was impressive. All right, John Donnelly was quiet, for a change, and then Adrian Mullen comes in and he steals all the limelight. But I don't think Kilkenny are operating just on that level yet. They are very physically strong, which always gives you a chance, and you need that. You can't compete with Limerick otherwise. But it's so hard to tell. I think that Kilkenny have a few questions to answer yet, especially in their defence, and we didn't even get to ask them the questions on Saturday.
Yeah, about 20 minutes in, my daughter asked me for my phone so she could play Subway Surfers, and I thought about joining her, Rory. It was that bad. It just, it was over. And like for all the Dublin fans who had travelled there in hope because they had been talking about this team, it's been coming. Geez, they're going to be waiting a while for them to get over that one.
And it feels like an opportunity missed as well. And it has happened a couple of times before where Dublin hurling kind of starts to make its way up this big mountain. It starts to garner public attention. It starts to bring the Dublin GAA community on side. Their interest starts to get piqued, and then a really flat performance seems to pop the pin into a balloon, and the whole thing then just fizzes out. It's a really, really frustrating thing, because you do get that sense that, like, if they could harness the Dublin GAA support base in the way that the footballers can, like hurling in general would benefit, and it'd be a fantastic little thing that could come alive. But there were so many things that just felt off. Two of the goals, for instance, I mean, look, Sean Brennan didn't have his best day, let's be honest. The reaction time, by the way, from TJ for the first one, I mean, those GPS units that they wear on the backs of the jerseys, I often wonder, wouldn't it be fantastic if that could give you reaction times? I presume they can. No, they'll never share that information. But it would be fantastic to see. I mean, it was just literally the ball, because from the time he went to try and catch the ball, it dropped, and TJ immediately, first thing, just bang, back of the net. The second goal that TJ scored, sure, that was just a gift. I mean, you wouldn't see that in an under-10s match, and it was just unbelievably disappointing. Back to turn his back on the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper to still poke the ball out to him. You know, bizarre stuff. But one really telling factor for me was, I was just looking at the two teams after the game. Now, Kilkenny got 5 yellow cards on their starting 15. How many did Dublin get?
0.
0. You know, now, does that mean that you should?
Well, Rory, you'd have to touch someone to get a yellow card, and I would say
this is it. This is it, and like that, it probably tells its own story in some ways, in that they stood off, it were totally disengaged. They didn't really go after him. The tactics seemed a little bit odd. They seemed a bit confused. They seemed to go away from all of the things that maybe got them into a Leinster final in the first place. They were just completely flat. And I think Neil is spot on. In terms of disappointment, theirs will rank the highest, because they just didn't perform.
Well, but, you know, I from looking at it, Rory, it seemed to me that they thought, right, we're going to play the running game here. It's been so effective for us in the other games in the round robin, but they missed the key point. You can't play the running game without possession, and they didn't bring any fight to allow them the foothold that gets you, you know, into position where you have possession to do the running game. And like Rory Hayes tried a number of times to come around in the loop, and then a half back would just launch it 90 yards into the forward line, and Kilkenny would mob it up. And the biggest disappointment they'll have, regardless of tactics, regardless of how they set up, is that they gave up after about 15 minutes. And that's just unforgivable, really. Yeah. You got to keep going right to the end. Like, even Jacqui Tyrrell in studio on Saturday was saying there wasn't even a hurl broke. You know, you can imagine if Jacqui Tyrrell was in that Dublin defence coming down the stretch, you know, trailing by 12 or 13 points.
They'd be picking up a yellow card then.
That's for sure. But
I just don't understand why, though, Neil. Like, you know, I was there on Saturday and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what are they doing? How are they standing so far off? Because that was not how they were playing in the round robin.
No, I don't know. Is it the weight of expectation? I really find it hard to you know, explain why that performance was so lackluster. And I've been part of plenty of lackluster performances, and that's what we were laughing with Jacqui. He was saying, you know, we've all been there. I said, I don't remember too many times,
yeah.
Jacqui, to be honest. But I said I have a little bit more experience in that area. But it's it was a big day, and they expected a lot from themselves. No two ways about it, and they just didn't deliver as a group. The fight didn't seem to be there, and whenever you don't bring the physicality in the fight, it doesn't give you the platform or the foundation to play the game in the way that you want to play it. And the only thing they can do is respond positively. You know, there's two options in life. You can react or you can respond, and they need to decide how they're going to respond here and save their season, because there's been so much to be happy about for Dublin. And if they can pull off a shot next to it, well then maybe there's something for them to reignite their season, because there was so much potential. I was looking forward to it, you know, hugely. I said this is an opportunity, and then they weren't in the game at any stage.
Oh, sure. Like, we brought the kids in thinking this is going to be brilliant. They're going to love it. Young Dubs will be thrilled. Like, they wanted to go home at halftime. I was like, no.
Yeah.
You need to sit this one through now. You need to learn these the hard way, because it just, I think from here even now, Rory, just, you're right. The air has been deflated in Dublin hurling, and whether it's Cork or Offaly, I still think it's going to be a long way back for this Dublin team to be able to come through on this side now.
Big time, and it's a really flat end to the season if that's how it ends up playing out from here, which is it's very disappointing. I mean, like, you were in there with your kids. My young lad was in there. Now he was in with our club, and yeah, they were quite dispirited. Now, like I said to him beforehand going in, regardless of the result, you just watch number 11, because you mightn't get to see him for all that often, and we all mightn't get to see too much of him anymore, and you just watch him for the whole day. And he came back and he said he scored 2-6, yeah. And I said, like, look, that's if you take that much out of the experience on the day, sure, look, it wasn't worth it from that point of view. And yeah, it was very, very disappointing. I don't know whether or not, the only thing I suppose, Jacqui, they have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 weeks is nearly the right amount of time to flush something like that out of your system. Look, the reality is, and the Cork will have a match next weekend. They'll probably then be playing Cork, I would imagine, if Cork get over Offaly, and most likely in Thurles. That's not going to be a big ask now. But, like, they'll have a week's rest, an opportunity to flush it. The very minimum that they probably deserve for themselves, if nothing else, is to make sure that they're at least competitive in that game, because it would be a terrible way to sign off on the season, given what happened on Saturday night.
Yeah, agreed. Well, if they are the most disappointed team, then I think Offaly have to be the happiest after the weekend, Neil, and after not just the weekend, but the last kind of week and a half or so. It just, when you talk about reigniting something in a county and driving it forward, just watching the success at under 20 level, the scenes, Croke Park Saturday, watching all the Offaly people in there, it was like the glory days. And I know, not to get too carried away, but it was actually brilliant to see something like that happen again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them playing in the Leinster Championship again.
Well, hurling is much richer for having Offaly back at the top table now. That's the truth. Sure, to have seen what they brought to Nolan Park, what was that, 8-9 days ago, was incredible. And the energy that they played with on the field, the way their crowd responded to the energy on the field, was remarkable. Then for them to back it up with the Joe McDonagh win on Saturday was fantastic. And there was a lot hanging in the balance there, because, in my opinion, Laois were actually the better team over they are. They just missed too many opportunities, didn't use the ball well enough up front, didn't throw it around enough, took on pot shots from poor areas. But Offaly afterwards, the celebrations, were incredible. Even Michael Deignan interview, he was nearly choking back the tears, and just how proud he was, not only of his son, he scored 1-4 from play, he was incredible. But of the group of Johnny Kelly and how he's managed to bring them together, and they're really on a journey now. They're a team who have won this Joe McDonagh with a different set of players, outside of the under-20s. I know, obviously Dan Burke and Adam Screeney were there, but that's largely a different squad of players for the under-20s to come into. So that under-20 team are flown straight into Leinster Championship hurling at the highest level, which is the natural home for them and the right place for them to develop most. And look, it was a brilliant occasion on the whole. And really, actually, it was a bit of a shout out as well to Colin McDonald from who refereed it. He let it flow, let them at it in Croke Park, and facilitated a super game hurling. But whenever the dust settles, Laois will be thinking, we let that slip.
Yeah, I do think, Rory, they might feel Neil is right. Their use of the ball could have been better. You don't get too many opportunities in Croke Park to secure that kind of a moment for your county. And I'd say they are probably having a few of those wishful moments now after it all, because it was definitely the game of the weekend in so many ways. There was so many chances and it could have gone either way, which was brilliant for the competition. Again, it's the one competition that just keeps delivering.
Yeah, they put 20 scores on the board, 26 scores on the board to Offaly's 25. It's just, the goals are absolutely key. And I mean, Aaron Dunphy, what a player. I mean, from dead balls, frees, 65s, from open play, it just unbelievable. I don't know what they end up with, 10 or 11 points in the end. But I suppose, look, the story really is Offaly over the course of the last week. Their return to the top table to win another All-Ireland title. We didn't really think we'd ever see that again. Now to bookend an incredible week by winning the Joe McDonagh and to finally get back up. Because you have to bear in mind, Offaly had dropped down to the Christie Ring, Jacqui.
Yeah.
They were down they were down in what you might consider junior hurling, so they're now back up very much at the senior table. They're going to be competing in the Leinster Championship next year, and I think that's where they're a large part of their focus. I hope that it's competitive. Like, in one sense, it's not, I don't know how satisfactory it is to have gone out and secured such a brilliant couple of weeks to win the Under-20 All-Ireland, to win the Joe McDonagh on Saturday, to not really get time to celebrate it all that much because they have to go and play Cork next Saturday. That's tough now, and you just hope for their sake that they can make that game competitive, because you wouldn't want it to ruin if they ended up getting a bit of a trimming, which is possible. Cork are going really well, like, in fairness, to be fair now, that they would sort of spoil some of the good work that's been done over the last 10 days. And maybe, is it really satisfactory that they have to go and play that match next week? Is it necessary? I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, funnily enough, Neil, I was listening to Eddie Brennan talking about it and his experience with Laois, who actually won their game against Dublin and had a good experience. Even he was totally against it. So if even people who've had a good experience are speaking about it, I think it's something they need to revisit here.
They do, and it's the timing of it. Rory's hit the nail on the head. It's the short window turnaround. Like the last time that we won the Joe McDonagh, we were actually playing 6 days later against Cork in Corrigan Park. Now, as an advertisement for hurling in West Belfast, it was amazing. Cork brought big support up. Corrigan Park was.
I was there. It was my first visit. It was my first visit up there. Yeah, I was sat behind Jerry Adams. You're stood behind him.
So that was worth its weight in gold to us, really, to be totally honest, bringing one of the superpowers of hurling up into Corrigan Park. And that game was really, really competitive actually as well, for 63, 64 minutes. And the people who probably enjoyed it least were the players, because the players had really enjoyed themselves Sunday and Monday, and then to be playing on Saturday again against Cork, who are always incredibly athletic, was a tough ask. But there's something positive in it, but they just need to figure out how to do it better than the way we do it currently. But I don't think, Rory, I understand your fear. Could this potentially damage Offaly and the spirit and the feeling that's currently in that county? I don't think so. I think they'll just be so happy with the under-20 win. the Joe McDonagh win was probably a little bit against their own play, so they'll be even more happy about that. It being against their neighbours won't hurt either. They'll not be one bit annoyed that Laois have been the team who haven't been successful, and I think that they'll just take all the positives and move forward for next year with, you know, a real air of anticipation in every club within Offaly.
The big question, Neil, is what sort of a challenge do they mount? Whatever about this season, you know, whatever happens against Cork, if they win, amazing, then the big dream continues. But really for next year, going into the Leinster Championship, you saw what happened to Carlow this year, all the progress they made, but yet they still find themselves back down in the Joe McDonagh next year. I think for an Offaly, it's trying to make sure that they get enough of the under-20s through, that they're ready to compete. But I guess that they're given the platform to continue that growth, that it's not just a yo-yo effect here. And it's just hard to know, are they ready for this stage?
Correct. Now, the league performances from Offaly were really strong, very competitive in most of the games. So they can take a lot of confidence out of that. The best way that we can help develop Hurling, help develop a number of top tier teams, is giving more exposure to the top tier. So if we can find a way of keeping teams in the top tier for a longer period than just the 5 or 6 matches, then that's the best way to do it. How we do that, you know, do we say, okay, relegation is only happening after 2 seasons? It's really hard to know how we figure that out, but there is a really good opportunity for the GAA here. We have a pool of 4 or 5 teams who are capable of making that step up, given that everything's in order. Like the way we're talking about Limerick, they have everything in order. If the other teams get things in place financially, from a coaching point of view, from an underage development, to make sure that there are players coming in to feed that team, to keep them at that level. If those 4 or 5 counties who have that opportunity currently have all those areas in alignment, then the GAA should absolutely back them financially to try and keep them in the top tier and expand that top tier, because it's too small in terms of those, you know, sort of 7 or 8 counties who are at the very top of the game, and the gap is actually, you know, there's already a gap there, and it's going to grow unless we do something about it.
Yeah, because Rory, when you watch success like what you've just seen, all you want to do is give them every essential tool to continue it, you know? So listen, it's been a magic story. It really has. They've probably been the story of the weekend in a lot of ways, and I think it's going to be great for them. I really think even just being in Croke Park, having occasions like that was just magic. Lads, look, we could chat about it all weekend, but we're going to have to leave it there. Looking forward to the All-Ireland knockout stages now. I think, Neil, just from what we're going to get to come, I know the provincials maybe didn't live up to it, but I think we're going to get cracking hurling from here, aren't we?
Oh, we are. This is going to be absolutely brilliant. And look, there's no second chances now. Everything's on the table. And I can't wait, actually, just for every one of the games. And we're so lucky to have, you know, hurling at the highest level to look forward to, because, oh, what a gift it is.
Like the last 2 years, the hurling semi-finals weekend produced the same 4 teams in the same 2 fixtures. That's not going to happen this year, which is another good positive. And I think it is going to be an epic weekend, because I think the colour, crack, the invasion into Dublin from Culchie land and all the hurling supporters. Listen, it's going to be great.
Yeah, well, bring it on, and we look forward to it all. Lads, have a great week, and wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to like and follow. We will be back later in the week to look ahead to round 3 of the Football Championship, and of course those preliminary quarterfinals as well. We'll talk to you then.
Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.